Just talk about fun.
My name's John Kirk. I'm a pop culture writer for popmythology.com, trekcore.com, and Back Issue. I'll be your moderator this afternoon, and like every other Star Trek geek, it's going to be an enormous pleasure for me to welcome probably the two most iconic villains in Star Trek history. I want to give you Q Corbin Bernsen, and John de Lancie. Give it up, please.
Good afternoon.
Look at this.
Yeah, what do you know?
There's a lot of love.
So it's nice being here. Did you see the
Picture of your grandchild?
Oh,
Yeah, come on.
Did you see the kid who put the egg on the guy's head?
Oh, yeah. Boom.
Yeah. But he was doing it like this. He had this up there.
Well, guys, you've done so much, and it's really difficult to know where to begin, but I'm going to give my best. I mean, Corbin, LA Law, all the way up to Punisher, you've got a huge history there. And John, I mean, with your amazing array of projects, and of course, I mean, you are the face of Q, let's face it. What are you both the most proud of?
After you.
You know, I can't pick one project, and I don't mean to sound mushy about this, but if I ever proud of means you doesn't mean you pat yourself on the back a bit, that I remain interested in everything I do, that I still have a passion for what I do. I just finished, anybody see The Punisher that just finished up? You know, I try to go about everything I do and really give it my all, and you know, LA Law had a certain moment to it, moments like doing Q. You know, saying, hey, would you come and do this Q2? You know, I'm proud of all of it. I just love what I do, so all of it.
You know, do you mind? It is really sort of weird to have people like this. You put them down, okay? So we could just have a regular conversation. Sir?
Well, you put up your phone. That's
Yeah.
a camera, man.
Do you mind?
No.
Thank you.
There we go.
Well, I think that was a really good answer because I feel the same way. Every project that you take on, if you like the project, becomes the project at the moment. Mm-hmm. And part of doing this is that we don't have one job. We have many, many, many different jobs. And if we like the process, then we really throw ourselves into it. I'm right now working on a rock opera, which I'm going to be doing in Amsterdam, and some friends of mine, and I'm writing the story that goes through it, and I was saying, this is really difficult. I'm having a really difficult time, and I write a lot, but I don't write in verse, and I was showing the material to a friend of mine who's a writer, and I was saying, it's just taking me so long, and I got so long. And she said, well, John, what you've written is really good, and nobody really cares how long it takes. And I went, well, yes, that's true. And a friend of mine who was in New York, who doesn't have a job right now, as actors are wont not to have, he said, what are you complaining about? You're working on something that's creative, so you're really lucky. You get up in the morning and you work. So a lot of what we do has to do with being in a creative state. Mm-hmm. And it's just fun when you have a project that you can give yourself to.
So speaking about fun, and Corbin, let's start with you in this one, but who do you both prefer playing, the hero or the villain? What's more fun?
You know, I think I've played more villains, whether it's Arnie Becker in LA Law. People call that the villain. I love the imperfect character, the imperfect person. I find it to be far more interesting to be able to I believe in the goodness of all people. I'm one of those suckers, one of those fools. And I try to find the inherent decency in those persons that has been subverted to make them this not anti-hero, but be the bad guy, you know? I like finding humanity in people that are faulted. I think, look, you can go to a different conversation, we're all faulted in some way or other. And that place between the fault of our beings and who we want to be and the goodness of who we are, that's what interests me, that area. And, you know, LA Law was, you make the bad guy so lovable. And that to me is the more interesting, well, it's Qs. The Qs are that, really, aren't they, to some degree? I mean, they're, so it's the same thing. That's what I like.
I play all characters as if they were the hero. I don't really think of good and bad. I recognize that there's a dynamic in the script, and oftentimes scripts, especially not very well written scripts, have the hero, and then the bad guy is really there to make the hero look better and stuff like that. But I don't follow that. I just play the hero as at least, or the antagonist, at least as someone who you at the end would go, you know, I don't really agree in his methods, but I really understand his point of view. So that's how I approach it.
That would be the conversation I have with my wife about Trump. That's another whole conversation.
Well, I think we're going to have to talk about being Qs together. So can you give us a sense of how you worked? What was your dynamic like when you played those amazing roles? Like, let's face it, Star Trek fans, am I right? Yeah.
Well, I didn't have a lot going into it. I mean, I just show up one day and you're this guy, and this is the story, and there's not a lot of history about it at the point that I came in to do it. Certainly I was aware of, and you know, you have this incredible actor that you're bouncing off of, and you kind of throw yourself into it and end up with a look that's like, which is how that became the look of Q2, this kind of like.
Yeah, it would have been coming in to do a guest star.
Right.
Is really difficult, and we've played a lot of them. And you're coming into an environment where everybody else seems to know each other, or they do know each other, and things have relaxed enough, but you're not relaxed.
Right.
And so you don't know what to take as more or less serious, so you're on high alert for just about everything. Well, I was a guest star, and you were a guest star. So
I was a guest star.
Guest star. I mean, I thought that what you did was pick up very quickly this sort of heightened reality that this character and the world that this character represents embodies. And understand something, is that when Gene Roddenberry wrote the character of Q, it was not intended as a continuation. There was no backstory. Oftentimes, a lot of times, writers have a Bible of backstory and where they come from and all that. None of that was written. So when Gene said to me after a couple of days into shooting, after the shooting or during shooting the pilot, where I guess, I mean, obviously, is that they liked what it was that they were seeing. He said, "I'm going to have you come back a bunch of times." He didn't know what I was coming back to,
Right.
And it's only in the, how long has this been going on? It's about 120 years.
It's a continuum.
It's a continuum. It's only been in you know, after all the many years later that people have been adding, oh, what the continuum is and what does that mean, and even to this day there's no, you know, definitive discussion or answer about any of that.
Yeah, you got to realize what we do is these writers sit in a room and they come up with stuff, and they say do it, and then you guys, us, all of us who watch it, sort of give meaning to it. Where quite often they're like, I just said it. I mean, I don't know it. People often ask about the pineapple in Psych, right? I don't know if everybody knows about the pineapple. That's because they put a pineapple on the set one day and it became like a thing. You know, it was like nobody came up with the pineapple. Now it's the iconic thing of Psych is a pineapple. It's because James Roday picked up the pineapple that was in a scene and made some comment about it.
Yeah, when, listen, not all episodes or all writing is good, and sometimes it's not so good. And part of our job as actors, and we use this term amongst ourselves, but I'm not going to share it with you, and that is our job sometimes is turning shit into shinola. and as any professional, sometimes you get a bumpy road and you have to kind of smooth it out. I'm reminded of a scene on Star Trek that I did with Whoopi Goldberg, who we were both going, what is this scene? I mean, it's a nothing scene. So we did the classic, you know, and we figured, okay, did you get that? Yes, okay, phew. Well, we sort of woo-wooed our way around that scene, and we're finished with it, like that. I can't tell you how many times I have been asked over the years, what did that really mean?
Well, I think I would be remiss in my job, John, if I didn't ask you to talk to the audience about your discoveries about bronies and your work as Discord and My Little Pony. I mean, my 7-year-old knows you.
I hesitate with these stories because you've heard them probably before, but in any case, I will make this quick for you. I'm at home, I'm down at my desk. Agent calls. John, you have an offer for him. I didn't even bother to say what. And they need an answer right away. It was my voiceover agent. I said, okay. Send it to me right away. I read 2 or 3 pages of it, and I went, it's a children's show. I mean, nobody's going to get, you know, shot at the end or gasoline or, I mean, it's fine, whatever. I shot it, you know, a couple of days later or a week later, whatever it is, and I prepare it. And my preparation, I'm very dyslexic, so I have to kind of like do a real preparation. So I prepared the material for at least a couple of hours the night before. I go in, an hour by myself in a booth talking to a speaker from a guy up in Canada somewhere, and that's it. Never to be thought of again, ever. I love doing voiceovers, but you know, I don't have to dress up for it. I don't have to get into makeup. I don't have to do anything other than do my job. Do it. 3 months later, I'm down at my computer and I see maybe about 300 or 400 emails in my personal email box. I'm like, my God, what has happened? I've been spammed. I'm really upset. Oh my gosh. And I've started reading MLP and My Little Pony. And I'm reading some of these things and I call up to my wife and I go, what do you know about My Little Pony? And she said, well, it's it's a show that you voiced about 3 months ago, and the check came through and it cleared. And it's a cartoon for little girls. And I said, well, let me tell you something. These are not little girls that are writing me. And that's how it began. And again, that night, a friend of mine who makes documentaries and what have you came over. I was telling him the story, and he said, we ought to do a documentary. I said, I am not touching this with a 10-foot pole. And then I was up in Vancouver, and I was shooting something, and I was there for about 10 days, and young men would come up to me, very well dressed, very polite, a little shy, saying, Mr. Lancie, would you sign my thing? I go, what is this for? My Little Pony. I go, why are you watching this program? So they began to explain it to me, and I had a company that I created, and Leonard Nimoy was part of the company, and I used to talk to Leonard about when was that period of time. You were in, excuse me, Leonard, but a failed television show that only lasted 3 years, barely. When did you know that something else was taking place? So we would talk quite a bit about that zone, and I began going, wow, I think I'm witness to something's happening here, because fandoms are oftentimes where people will come in from the sun to get shade, where they feel secure for a moment. And I thought, I think I'm part of this. I think this is happening here. And then my friend also sent me at the time, because he knows I have a really dislike Fox News. I think that they've done more to pervert truth-telling in our country. And he sent me a link, and he said, I think you should see this. This is the guy who wanted to make the documentary. And it said, bronies, the latest in the degradation of our culture. Bronies are a bunch of homosexuals who live at home on food stamps and disabilities to be able to watch cartoons in their parents' basement. And I went, we're going to make that documentary.
Awesome. Corbin, I got to ask you, what was it like working on American Gods?
Well, it's again one of those things you don't know what you're coming into. I knew about the book, had not read the book, and when I started to, I was in Europe when I got the offer to do it, and I had to go to Barcelona to cast my head. If anybody saw, because they needed to chop my head off, and I was in Europe at the time, and. So I walked into it. It's one of those things, again, you walk into it and it's like, okay, American Gods, this is cool. And I knew about Neil, I knew about the book. But it was, I'd always wanted to work with Ian McShane, a pretty interesting guy.
Amazing.
My wife had known him years ago in England. So it was fantastic. And again, but it was again one of those things where you walk in and you don't know what you do. You go, yeah, this sounds interesting. Okay, it's Toronto, cool. Second, cool. And I just came up and got involved in it. It was a fantastic. I became a fan of the show, like anybody else. It's a hell of a lot easier than reading the books. But yeah, it was one of those things. It was a wonderful experience, and again, one of those lucky things where you fall into it, and then in a similar way, it had its own fan base that grew, and the whole thing. Unfortunately, I got killed. Although I was told by Neil, gods don't die, so watch out for season 2, which is now come and gone. So evidently, gods do die and stay dead.
Hope springs eternal.
But now season 3 is being executive produced by a new showrunner. That's the people who sort of handle the show, by one of the producers from LA Law. So, I'm making that call. I just heard this the other day. So it's like,
So does that mean you're definitely out?
yeah, we don't revisit the past, Corbin. But no, I'd love to come back. I wanted to do more of it, but I was happy. I'm really thrilled with my career. I've been able to just dip my toes in a lot of different waters, and you get at a certain point as an actor. I don't know if this happened with you. Everybody starts out and you love your acting, you love it, and then this stardom thing happens, and some people rise up and become these mega movie stars and Tom Cruise-y things and James Dean and all that. And somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I think, like any young actor, I want to be it. I want Academy Awards. I want it all. I want to own my island like Marlon Brando. And then you realize that ain't going to happen. And you either adapt to that fact in some manner, or like so many of us so many do just fade off and you don't hear from them again. But my adaptation was, I'm very solid. I've been married for 30 years. I have a rock solid family. And it's allowed me to just dip my toes and experiment, come and do a wonderful afternoon with John, come and do a week up here on American Gods. And I've now transformed my thinking into, that's also a cool kind of career. I may not be as big or as known as Tom Cruise and all that, but I have this, look at my table out there, it's a confusion of photographs of all these people coming. I have to make combo packages just to make people happy. They take 3 for the price of 1, because I can't see your indecision is really confusing me. But I appreciate. I love the career I've had. I've become very comfortable with it and accepting of it, and it continues. I have 3 new things that are coming up. One that maybe bring me back here actually for next year, so wonderful. More on that. It's evidently some Marvel project.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a good tease.
Okay, at this point, let's turn the time over to the fans and let's get some questions going, folks. Oh, right over there.
Well, I came back once a year, and actually for Next Gen, I only came back 6 times in 7 years. So there was rarely any formal character development. They would call a month in advance to say that there's going to be a script and would I be available. And then the only times that I would try to put in my 2 cents would be along the lines of well, first of all, can I get the script as soon as possible because I need to start learning lines, which has always been a difficulty for me. And then the other one is that don't write me funny. I had already been on a couple of shows where I had come in. I have my own particular sense of humor. And it seems to work as long as it's an undercut and kind of a wink and a nod. But if you start writing me funny, then my ability to maneuver gets pushed up further and further up against the ceiling, and I have less and less ability to maneuver. So don't write me funny. I will find places in it to make it amusing. But most people don't really want to work that way. I can't really say that there was like some big developmental period of time about any of these things. It was only in the last episode, which was All Good Things, that I actually think that they hit on a bunch of facets that had already been cut, but then a couple of others that had not been cut, which I went, well, this should be interesting. Now I get to think about and show other parts of this character. But until that time comes, you didn't really do anything until you have the material in front of you. It's just,
Can I ask John a question?
Awesome question. Yeah.
John. Hi, Corbin Bernsen.
Oh, sorry. Which John?
Do you, along those lines? Along those lines, I'm curious because I read for a sitcom last week, and I just sat there and I thought, I stink. This is terrible. And do you have, because of what you just said, do you find sitcoms difficult to access because all the joke is there?
Yeah, I really dislike sitcoms. And early in my career, I did a bunch of them, and was on. And I just, they do not. I saw a. I was doing a show over at the over in UCLA there. At the, what is
Royce
it?
Hall.
McGowan? No. What's the theater over there?
McGowan Hall. I went to UCLA.
No, not
Royce Hall.
No, the
little
professional
theater.
there.
What?
Right off of next to UCLA.
Oh, at the Westwood
Geffen.
Playhouse. Oh,
The
Geffen.
Geffen.
Yes. Okay.
And during
Travis used to come.
You can't
Don't
write-
mind us.
and at lunch hour one day we decided to go. Are you familiar with the graveyard that's
No.
No. It's got Marilyn Monroe is there.
Oh, that. The Forever Cemetery. That one.
Yeah,
yes.
Marilyn Monroe is there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Merv Griffin is there.
Yeah, I know.
And there was there are a lot of actors there.
Yeah.
There was one actor who I have to say, I'm really sorry. I know you're dead, but I'm really sorry. I don't remember his name, but his gravestone was perfect. So Bob Brown. Okay? Fine actor, weather permitting. And I feel like I'm one of those type of actors. Because a sitcom really requires, there's certain skills that you need to have for a sitcom, and not the least of which is that everything is this joke that has to be up front right in the beginning, and and then after about 3 days, of course, the same joke that was funny like on day one is not funny now. So they're going to rewrite it, and then they rewrite it again until finally you get to the day in which all the audience comes in. Everybody is hysterical, but hair on fire, hysterical, and they're handing you new lines. And I'm like, I don't want to do this stuff. But yeah, I agree. It's just
There's no room to.
there's no. It's right there.
Okay, thank you for that.
Got a
It's
question.
nice to not be alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In what ways was your mother involved with you presenting?
She was instrumental not only in that, but being the person that ultimately I became. My mother, for those who don't know, was on The Young and the Restless for 45 years. I'll tell you very quickly, when I decided I did not want to be an actor. My mother was an actress. My father was an agent, producer. I saw our lives go up and down. We had a brand new car in the driveway. It was repossessed. Brand new car in the driveway. It was repossessed. I said, I want no part of this. I want nothing to do with this career. And all the people that came over late at night were all lunatics and playing poker and smoking. And, I thought, I want to be a real person. At 18 years old, my father put me in a little black exploitation movie, one of the first ones called Three the Hard Way, where I got to make out with a girl, see my car blown up, and get $900 at the end of the night. And I said, I want to be an actor. Changed my mind immediately. And I told my mother the next day, I dropped out of San Diego State where I was, and I told my mother, I said, I think I want to follow the footsteps. And she said, that's fine, but you can do whatever you want, and I love you and all of that, but I will only respect you and give you my blessing if you train yourself, because this is I think we've been saying it's this rocky up and down. What I said, it's this rocky up and down. And the only thing that keeps you through it is an education that creates a love for what you do. That's why you see so many young kids kind of come, burn out, social media stars flame out, fizzle. But people who've been around forever is because we've been doing it, and there's a sense of training and background to it. So she taught me that, basically that, and it goes back to what I said a moment ago. I do a little of this and do a little of that, and that's where she's instrumental. And beyond that, so many other parts of the being who I am, in my own way I deal with people. But yeah, so she's every day. I mean, if I ever win an award, which I never expect to, she'll be the first person I thank.
Question over there.
As I do.
Question is am I going to be in whatever show that is? What's the name of it?
Picard, yeah.
But what's the name? I see if I'm going to see him out there. This is a little bit like, and you can consider this in your own lives. This is a little bit like wondering whether next weekend you're going to be invited to the dinner party. Okay? You can wonder all you want. It's not going to change anything. It's their dinner party, and they have X amount of seats at the table. And so and I've been very good disciplining myself all my life of not thinking about that. So when they were making the movies, I can't tell you how many people said to me, "Oh my God, I can't believe that you aren't in the movies." I go, "Well, I just didn't get invited to the dinner party." So, that's the way it goes. I'm blessed to have a life that's more full than worrying about whether I'm invited to that dinner party. Any stories from behind? None that I can tell you.
We got a question right there.
The Breaking Bad set, and Corbin will recognize this, is that there are a lot of jobs, and then maybe 10% of the jobs are special. And you can feel it the minute you walk on the set. Everybody is on their top game. And but one of the things is that, as we were talking about before, being a guest, there's a lot of pressure on you. And one of the easiest ways to determine, or one of the easiest pressures or obvious pressures, is that you need to get your material out. You need to be able to do what you've been hired to do, to hit that target, frankly, on the first take, and surely by the third take. And that's just the way it is. And so we started a scene which would have been about a 3-page television scene at 10 o'clock. And we do the first take. Well, let's do it again. Second take. Let's do it again. And I'm like, oh boy, something's up. And I go, is everything all right? We know that feeling. It's a horrible feeling. And they said, yeah, no, we really like what you're doing. And I went, okay, why are we shooting it? Why are we continuing to shoot? Well, they were all in the video village, which is where the videos are. And I recognized, unlike most shows, they now were doing their work. And we shot that scene from 10 o'clock in the morning until about 5:30 in the afternoon. So that little, you would touch the person's hand. They go, I really like that. Let's just grab that. And, let's grab that. And, could you come in a little closer? And all of a sudden, when you realize, oh, they're working too, it just frees you up. And you kind of go, oh, man, this is great. This is what I love about this part of the profession. So I had that experience there, and it was great. And I just kept on saying to them, personally, for that particular character, I played a character whose daughter was a drug addict, and I was her father, and I was only concerned about her well-being. So I did not see anything else but that. None of these invisible currents was I seeing. And I said, and all I needed to really do was to get out of my own way as an actor. All I had to do was get out of my way so that you, the audience, could have that experience. And one of the things that's so nice about our profession, be it a play or a movie or what have you, or a piece of music, and that is that it gives the audience an opportunity to see themselves. And I've had a couple of experiences from just that role where a young man, in two instances, two young men came up to me and they looked at me really obliquely, and I could tell, ooh, what's going on here? And they go, hey man, are you Jane's father? And I go, oh, yeah. And they go, yeah. Now I know what it was like for what my parents went through. I was like, wow. For him to finally understand that his parents were in such pain because of his addiction, he couldn't see it through them, but he could see it through this. And those are the windows that make our profession really kind of special sometimes.
I have a funny opposite experience to the do it again, John, do it again, and like, am I not getting it or something? I did a show that HBO never aired, David Fincher, a wonderful director. I had 4 episodes of a show, I think it was called Synchronicity or something like that. Never made it to air. They got 4 of the episodes. I was in 3 of them. I come on to do my first day, and there's a wonderful British actor named Jason Fleming. I go to the set to check it out, to see, you try to get a feel of what's going to go on. And Jason, this guy's coming down a set of stairs, hitting a landing, and coming down another set of stairs. And David's like, do it again, Jason. Comes down. Do it again, Jason. And he must be slower, faster, 2 steps at a time, 3 steps at a time, slow, go very slow. I must have watched him coming down steps 50 times. And I went to Jason and went, oh shit, what is this, man? I mean, 50 takes, are you kidding me? And he goes, Corbin, just go with it, mate. Go with it, mate. He loves lots of takes. Just go with it. Don't freak out. Just do it. And coming to my first scene, I did 2 takes, and David went, great, got it, moving on. I thought, I'm going to be fired because I'm not giving him enough.
I think we got time for one more question. Oh, over there. Oh, it's a twofer.
That looked like to tell the truth. You both get to do it.
Okay.
So I find it interesting how you, John, act as a character as the protagonist, if they're not. What's the most thought-provoking thing you've ever experienced in your career?
Oh, that's a deep one.
Well, Mine was actually, I got a chance to play a wonderful guy named Morris Dees, who was the head of the Southern Poverty Law Center. And you can look it up more about him. An incredible man he's fought for civil rights all his life. And this was something that I could not just not give 1,000% to, because you're playing a real guy, which is another whole set of rules. The other is you've got this incredible man of such integrity, and I really had to, and I saw everybody watching me, because you're taking on, even though you may not know him, again, look him up and you'll see what he's done in his history. There's this huge responsibility to get it right, I suppose. And that was the biggest challenge for me. And a little anecdote to that story is, here I'd done all this work, and I actually, when I had hair, made it curly, because this guy had curly hair. And I think it was either the earthquake or the riots, one of the two in Los Angeles happened, and this movie, which I'd put all this time into, was canceled that night because of special breaking coverage.
I've had that.
And it was weeks later it aired, and just was nothing. But that was playing. So the bigger part of that is playing a real person of deep integrity. There's just this responsibility.
That's wonderful.
I did a sitcom with, not a sitcom, a three-camera, a comedy show with Mel Brooks that, and Cloris Leachman and Harvey Korman. I mean, it was just going great.
Cool.
And there was like a plane crash, and it got pulled off the air. I mean, really? I was like, oh my gosh. I played a character that made that had a big impression on me, mostly in the technique that it required. I played the character called B-Bow, and B-Bow was was at the time my age. He was like a 35-year-old functionary of the ghetto of Lodz. And he dealt with an older man played by Alan Mendel, a known actor, who was in his 70s, who ran the good ghetto of Lodz. And our conversations, and into this symbiotic relationship came the final solution. So our discussions back and forth on stage were, we need to get 3,500 people on the train to Auschwitz by Friday. So it was a very tough dialogue, and the audience was crying through it. It was a really tough show. And I was having a hard time figuring out the character. I was just figuring out the character. And because I was trying to be B-Bow at this period in his life where he could go, hey, listen, why don't we put the infants up to 5 years old on the train? Because that way, that doesn't change the adults making the blankets, which is what I'm concerned about, because I want the factories to keep on working. It's that type of conversation. And I had gone at lunch to go and get a drink. I mean, not a drink, but a soda.
Yeah.
And the person in front of me was also in line, and they were paying for their soda, and a $5 bill fell on the floor. And I immediately reached down and I picked it up. Here, sir, your $5 bill. Oh, thank you very much. And then I paid for my soda. And as I'm walking back, I went, oh, I had another choice. I could have stepped forward and covered that $5 bill. You know what? That's where I'm going to start this character from. This tiny little choice that sets you up to begin going into another direction, so that 15, 20 years down the line, he's over here. I don't have to play a monster. I just have to keep hold of that choice that we all have, those little tiny choices. And that opened up for me not only the character, which I was able to do well because I wasn't playing a monster, I was actually only playing, excuse me, we have a problem. We have to have 3,500 people on the train, and we got 700 of them are under 5 years old. What's the problem? Which became very, very powerful. But it also gave me one of those instances, as acting is wont to do, into your own life, and you kind of go, oh, this is interesting. So that's another fun thing that we get to pretend and see how those things work themselves out.
Wow. I think this has to be the last question.
I didn't understand.
Based on a novel, I believe. Is that correct?
You mean having my son die?
Wow.
Well, let me think about that for a minute. I mean, from a story point of view, maybe that works out. I mean, obviously, in a personal point of view, I would think it would be terrible. So I think that's a pretty obvious answer. Yeah. One more for Corbin. Yeah, no. Come on, we'll just end it. Okay. Yes, over there.
Oh, sorry. It was totally for you.
For both of us. Good, perfect. Let me answer that.
How did the dynamic come out? I think it mirrored a lot, and I'll go quickly. It mirrored a lot of what I have 4 sons, and we expect our children, sons and daughters, to become one thing and be one thing. We set a sort of a road, and we show example of what we want them to become. What I learned it through my own sons, which was exactly at the time of Psych, because they were kind of in the middle of those same years, although Sean's a little bit older than they were. Your kids don't always, you want them to get to point B from point A. You want to launch them to get to point B. How they get there is definitely going to be their own journey, and you have to let go and let that journey be. And it may not be that they get to point B, but I've learned with my own sons, as I did with Sean's character, and it's reflected very much in the movie we're about to start in 2 weeks, by the way, that, you just, if your kids are going down the road, it's good, it's fine, but they aren't going to do it your way. And you just have to embrace that. And that's what I think Henry learned with Sean. At the end of the day, Sean did everything I wanted him to do. He was a cop, and he was a good cop, and he's a better cop than I was, even though it was through all of this stuff. So I think that it was interesting because it reflected my own life at the same time, and I very much have employed that with my own sons.
Well, I think you'll have to both excuse me, but I think we're going to have to call it quits there. Ladies and gentlemen,
an hour for that.
give it up for Corbin Bernsen and John Delancey, please.